Recorded live from the mats of Radical MMA in New York City. The Martial Culture Podcast. Your source for in-depth combat sports and martial arts insights with Coach Renee Dreyfus and Matt Peters. Ring the bell and let's get it on.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great. Best day ever.
Yeah?
Hanging out with my podcast buddy.
Wow. Do you want something from me? Do I have to pay you for that?
You don't have to pay me.
I don't have any money.
I'm just happy to see you. I missed
but
you
I
last
can pay
week.
you in other ways.
I definitely don't want that.
Okay, moving on. Welcome back, everybody.
And I'll be moving just a little bit further away this time.
There's no video today, so nobody will know.
No one will know.
We got some exciting stuff coming up in
Yes.
today's episode. I was going over a couple of the UFC events over the last 2 weeks. Quick recap over those. And some of our highlights from our favorite Colby Covington fight. And then we'll also talk about...
I just had to suppress some vomit.
We're going to be giving away a book. We've been talking about it for like a month at this point.
Yeah, let everybody get their reviews in. We got a lot of nice reviews. And we're going to mix them up and...
ASMR. We're going to do it via ASMR. So we'll give away one of the highly sought after Killer Collective books.
Yes.
Later in the show. So you have to listen all the way to the end if you want your name to be picked. And if then you have to contact us because I don't know who some of these people are.
Yeah, just what we'll do is we'll tell them to contact us through the Facebook page or the Instagram.
Because if you're a listener, you'll listen and you'll hear your
name. Right, exactly.
And you'll say, give me that goddamn book. I want to read it. If you've already read The Killer Collective, we'll try to find another book for you.
Yes, we have a few. Actually, I have a book that I just got. It's a History of Samurai Warfare, which is pretty good. But anyway,
Samurai Warfare.
Yeah, it's my historic reading of the moment.
Did you ever see the game For Honor?
No, what's that?
It's where they mix different types of warriors from generations, and they have like samurai versus a knight, and like
it's like a board game.
No, it's a video game.
Oh, yeah. You know what? There was a TV show like that. I forgot what it's called, but yeah, it was
like we talked about
we did talk about it. Like, what would a Zulu warrior happen if a Zulu warrior fought a samurai or a Spartan warrior
like
fought
Discovery or Nat
Geo
or something.
Yeah, exactly.
We're repeating ourselves. The greatest hits. This is episode 50, by the way.
This is 50. Oh my God, this is amazing.
We're recording it right now.
This is
it's
great.
Happening.
Wow, 50 episodes. That's fantastic. I'm so happy. And we are, I was looking at our ratings. We're still pretty up there in the charts.
Can't touch us. They keep trying. They hate us because they ain't us.
Can't touch this.
This is the stuff they come for. The things they... So, Holloway versus Frankie Edgar.
Yeah, we missed that. Unfortunately,
were you surprised by the turn of events?
No,
or are we happy?
No, but let's talk about it. Yeah, so that was an interesting fight night. It was UFC 240, right? So there was a couple of interesting fights on the card. There was Olivier Aubin Mercier versus Tsarukyan, and
crazy names.
Yeah, Tsarukyan. He's Armenian or something. Any name that ends with Ian is generally speaking Armenian. But one of the Caucasus fighters. And they had great wrestling.
A lot of decisions.
So there was two fights with they were interesting, and then there was Cyborg versus Spencer, which was a total mismatch, but you couldn't really help it. We were talking about it in the podcast before. Cyborg kind of cleaned out division, and it turns out that after this fight, she became a free agent, so she might actually be dropped from the UFC because it's like, I don't know. She asked for a lot more money, and she kind of cleaned out the division, and so I think on two sides, it's sort of like Dana White's like, well, you're not really that much of a draw, and you cleaned out the division, so there's no like.
Who's next?
Yeah, like who's next? So and she's asking for a lot of money. I heard. I don't know. It's sad to see her go. It looks like ONE FC is going to scoop her up, but we'll see. Anyway, but I'll tell you, Spencer, the girl Spencer, had amazing durability. She was really, really, really in it the whole fight and just trying to drag Cyborg to the ground. And she had a really, really great elbow at one point. But she's one tough SOB. I mean, that girl is tough. She had no quit in her whatsoever. But she has to season a lot more in striking. And she had a little bit of like a traditional martial arts background, kind of a taekwondo background. And you kind of see the flaws in that style, how she's just kind of awkward with her striking, and she threw some kicks, but they're typical of kind of like a lot of Taekwondo kicks is they just don't have a tremendous amount of power. They have a little more speed and accuracy, but that can only go so far. So she lost, but she definitely was in there, really, really trying to give Cyborg work the whole fight. I give her a lot of credit.
It's not an easy task.
Yeah, not an easy task, right?
Bellator has made a bid for Cyborg.
Really?
Yeah, they sent her a contract.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I guess whoever bids the highest. But then there was Holloway versus Edgar, and that was a striking clinic from Holloway. And it's kind of interesting because he had such problems with Poirier, and he didn't have any of those problems with Edgar. So, you can see that styles really make fights. And a person what energy a fighter gives you, sometimes you're very easy to like, oh, I can figure this out. And then the other energy, the other movement and its patterns, they're like, whoa, what's going on here? Obviously, it was a higher weight class, and there's some maybe reach issues and things like that. But Holloway was always slightly on the outside in an angle, like every single time. And Edgar, and I'm not the biggest Frank Edgar fan. Let's just get that out of the way for a lot of reasons, but that will not be spoken on this podcast. But anyway, he is a much more linear fighter. And I knew, I was looking at the the countdown, like the 24/7 follow the fighters kind of thing, the UFC countdown thing. Sure. And I'm watching how they're training. And Frankie Edgar is very good. There's no question. But he eats a lot of punches. He's always eating. I mean, in his two fights with Gray Maynard and his fights with BJ Penn, he's just eating a lot of punches. Especially those two fights with Gray Maynard, where he was like basically knocked out for the most of the fight. So he's tough. He's one tough character, but he has a little bit of a porous defense, and he's very linear. Now, I'm not saying Mark Henry's trainer is a bad coach. I'm not saying that at all, obviously. But Frankie Edgar, he's a very linear fighter, and he's just kind of up there in your face. And if you're a linear fighter and you're fighting someone who fights at angles, the guy at an angle was always going to have a slight advantage. And that was what showed over time. And it was a masterclass in Holloway using his range. So Edgar obviously has a reach disadvantage. And then also he was giving up the angle to Holloway. Right. So it's like, you're going to lose. You're just going to lose. And he was an infighter who couldn't get in. He was an infighter who couldn't get in. Like, if you're an infighter and you can't get in, you're going to be in trouble. And if you're shorter, you got to play angles. You got to mix things up. And Edgar had success with the kick and also punches off the break. So those are kind of things that he could really work towards. But he didn't use them enough. And he needed to angle out more. And it's not, that angling out is just not part of his repertoire. It's not what he does. He's kind of like an old school stand in your face boxer. And he's good. Let me tell you, he is good. But when you do the same thing over and over again, no matter how good you are, if somebody knows what you're going to do and they have an answer for it, you're going to be in trouble. And that's exactly what it is. It's just, Poirier seemed to me a much slicker fighter in terms of angles, and he did a lot of shoulder rolls. And he was like, really trying to get in and negate any reach advantage that Holloway had and make him suffer for it. And Edgar was not ever making Holloway suffer in any way. I don't even think Holloway took that much damage in this fight, like very little. And he got hit, but considering he was in a heavyweight, a championship fight, went all the distance. You'd think he'd take more damage, and he really didn't. He was just masterclass in striking.
Yeah, he only hit Holloway 96 times. That's not a lot.
That's not a lot for 5 rounds. No. How many times was the other way? It was probably
131.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's less of a difference than I thought it would be. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
I think I found out why you don't like Frankie Edgar, though. I was looking at his bio. His wife's name is Renee.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, you pretend you don't know that. So it was a hard loss for Frankie Edgar. I mean, he's getting up there in age, and obviously taking a lot of hits. You think he's going to drop down in weight class?
I don't think he can.
No,
I don't know.
You don't think he's got it in him?
No, it's also when you get older, just cutting weight's harder and harder.
Yeah,
that's not in him. I mean, he's a warrior, but he could probably do it, but it would be health for his career. And this brings us to the fight. It's kind of Robbie Lawler.
You can't even say his name.
Yeah,
you just refuse.
Kobe Covington fight. And then Lawler and Edgar are two guys who've been in the game for a long, long time. And the thing is, as you get older, you lose your hand speed. That's a fact. You lose your hand speed as you get older.
Wow.
And
the the strikes on the Covington Lawler fight.
Yeah, it's just
Lawler at 82, Covington at 201.
Yeah, it was it was I want to talk about
10
the fight.
takedowns.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
it was totally a mismatch. It was really weird. But I want to, before we talk about that, want to go back and to have the two fights that I saw was Nico Price versus Jeff Neal, and Olivier versus Tsarukyan. And it was funny because the defensive the Tsarukyan came out very aggressive and was like really wrestling, and you could tell that he came from that, like, you know, Caucasus wrestling style, and he really did really well in the first round. He dominated, but in the second, you know, OAM Olivier Aubin-Mercier came out, and he had great defensive strikes, and then he reversed the takedown, and then he put, you know, Tsarukyan in the guard. And, you know, one of the things I noticed, and I noticed this so much in MMA, and it's why people say the guard is dead, but it's not the guard is dead. It's crappy guard is dead. You know, like if you're not playing the guard effectively, you're gonna eat punches. Now, this was one fight, and the same thing with Jeff Neal versus Nico Price. And Nico Price is like, he's a pretty talented guy. I mean, he has a lot of you know, interesting wins. He's kind of unorthodox, and he made up that kind of finish that he had, the really interesting finish like about a year ago. But he made a lot of grappling mistakes. But I'll tell you one interesting thing in that fight is Nico headbutted the crap out of Jeff Neal. So Neal's coming in with throwing like a hook, and Nico comes in straight on, headbutts him like a rhino in the face, and then hits him after he headbutts him. Not a cocking the head back, but almost like looking like a shot. And it could have been that he was trying to shoot in, but it was a full on headbutt, and knocks him down with it. No warning, no point taken away. Nothing. So basically, you have to understand, and I've been saying this a long time, headbutts are de facto legal in MMA because everybody does them all the time. It just slightly make them look like a shoot. I don't know if it was intentional, but it definitely kind of looked like it. But then Nico made so many grappling mistakes. He was winning the fight. Like, he was winning the fight like crazy, right? And I wouldn't say like crazy, but they were going at it, right? And then he gets put in the guard, keeps his guard closed the whole time. The same mistake as the previous fight. If you cannot control a guy's posture, you're in the guard, which means, you know, wrapping your legs around a person's waist, right? And they're postured up, they can unleash hell and fire on you. You have to destroy their posture. Now, what do you do, Matt, if you can't destroy their posture? You don't stay there. Yeah. You're gonna die. And you have to go back to opening your guard, or trying to again destroy the posture. And that was not what was going on. And they just sat there and closed guard, kept it closed, and just ate bomb after bomb. And it was absolutely horrendously brutal ground and pound. I mean, it was like, whoa. I'm almost like to the point where I didn't want to see it. It was like, this is bad. And he just got the shellac beaten out of him. And it wasn't sort of much like Jeff Neal won. It was more like Price just freaking threw it away with undisciplined movement and serious mistakes and not understanding, hey, don't stay in a position where you're getting hit. Mm-hmm. And that's true like anywhere. Like, if you are in a position where you're getting hit, you got to move. It's obvious. But it's sort of this thing like, well, I'll close my guard and protect myself. And it's a legacy of like training jiu-jitsu without strikes. Because there's no downside to closing your guard. You can just kind of hang out there. Mm-hmm. But when there's punches, you can't hang out there. You're gonna eat it. Right. And it was it's kind of sad to see like guys who are really good making such like fundamental errors, and they're really good, you know. But hopefully they learn from this. And you know, like I was saying, it's my obligatory Damian Maia reference. You know, Spencer, who fought Spyro, she's sort of like a female Damian Maia, where she's like, if she doesn't take you down, she's gonna have a rough day. Yeah. And you know, the same thing is like two things you have to do is not get hit, and also learn how to hit someone really well. You know, that's fighting. I don't care if it's whatever. You know, even people say, oh, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, it's not a striking art. Man, everybody says that Helio Gracie, the founder of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, had a mean right cross. Guy had a mean right cross, and all the Gracies I've ever seen, you know, when they punched you, it freaking hurt, even though they weren't like, you know, learning the science of boxing. But you have to be able to put the kibosh on people. Right. And, you can't just shoot in with willy-nilly and think you can drag everybody to the ground because you just can't, and then
I
when
want
you're
to see somebody shooting willy-nilly. What does that look like? It's like your arms flailing around.
I
Here I
guess so,
come.
yeah. Here I come.
Get ready, catch me. You could patent that. You got the rat guard, now get the willy-nilly.
Willy-nilly,
That's probably copyrighted by somebody.
we should Google this.
Where'd that even come from? I'm derailing the whole conversation.
I don't know. It's like an old expression, like
Willy-nilly.
willy-nilly, because I'm an old dude.
Mm.
People say that. My wife was saying, it was funny. She's like, you're like old school, even for old school people. I'm like, oh yeah, man, that's true. She's like, you're old even for your age. I'm like, thanks.
You're an old soul.
I'm an old soul.
Yeah.
I'm a crotchety old soul.
Your body's catching up to your soul.
Yes.
Mm.
So anyway, so then that brings us to the Covington Lawler fight night. And there's some interesting fights. So the two main events were Covington Lawler and Miller and Guida. And then there was Silva versus Hakparast, who is like, the clone of Kevin Gastelum. He looks like a smaller Kevin Gastelum. He looks just like him. And then there was two other fights that were kind of interesting. One of them was Holtzman versus Ma. And Ma's this Korean fighter, and he's pretty good. But they had Holtzman, and this is kind of really interesting because, a lot of boxers hate on MMA striking. Like, these MMA guys, their strike sucks. If they looked at Holtzman, they would see beautiful defensive boxing, which you don't see so much. Man, the guy was slipping and moving and bobbed and weaved, and everything Ma threw at him, he was just not there. And it was just really good. And what he did is hit him with one big straight bonk, put him on the floor, and then just wrecked him from there. And then they had to stop it because the eye closed so much. The one punch and maybe like another one after that. And basically, the guy's eye was so closed they stopped it before it went around to the next round. And but Holtzman, this guy has got a future. He's beautiful, some beautiful head movement. He just has to make sure that he's a little bit better in his grappling, but pretty good. And then there's two really interesting fights. There was Meerschaert and Giles. And then there was Miller and Guida. And this is kind of interesting because, we're always talking about like, you got to be well-rounded and this and that. And you could just see that both these fights, they're won by a guillotine, two different guillotines. Meerschaert used a Mackenzatine and Jim Miller used a regular arm-in guillotine. But these guys, especially Jim Miller, I've known about Jim for years. I mean, he was on the circuit when I was fighting, and before that, he actually even predates me. I mean, he was a guy around that I was looking up to, and he and his brother, they were always training in New Jersey, and he's been doing this for decades and decades. I mean, in the UFC, he's like 13, 14 fights, but he's been fighting long before that. He's a real old school East Coast martial artist, and everybody knows Jim Miller's guillotine is one of the most dangerous out there. Mm-hmm. And you're seeing a specialist at his art. So Guida shoots in, gets kind of hit with a hook. Miller buzzes him a little bit, puts on a guillotine, and finishes it. That's it. It's like super short, like pop. Yeah. And it's the masterful specialist using his specialty. Boom. And you can see he's smart that he was like, I'll wait till he's a little dazed. And then I'll just really, really get into it. It kind of reminds me of the theory of old school Japanese jiu-jitsu. Like, if you're familiar with old school Japanese jiu-jitsu, it's a little bit more, it has more striking in it. And I've studied Japanese jiu-jitsu. It's still different from Brazilian jiu-jitsu in that Brazilian jiu-jitsu is very submission and position and grappling focused. And of course, Gracie jiu-jitsu has strikes in it, but still it's very obviously grappling oriented, right? Even though there's ground and pound and things like that. Where Japanese jiu-jitsu has this thing called atemi. So every time you want to throw a guy, every time you want to kind of submit him, you basically hit him first. And so there's always like you hit and then you throw. You hit and you throw. And it's mostly in the style I did, it was a little more oriented towards throwing. But I've done a number of Japanese jiu-jitsu styles, but the one I'm talking about now, it's sort of like a clothesline, you hit you, or a knee or something, and then you hit the throw. And these are called the temiwaza, right? And it's interesting because lately you've been seeing a lot in MMA, and it's been going on for a few years now, where guys are really kind of thinking in more in an old school jiu-jitsu context, old school, not Brazilian, but Japanese jiu-jitsu. They're like, before I actually put something on you, I'm going to daze you because the percentage chance of my success will be much higher if I actually punched you in the face and dazed you a little. I'm going to go for the submission after I daze you. And I really love that. It's so smart. It's so thoughtful. It's like, I'm not going to, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. And he just clipped him with that hook and then jumped on that guillotine because he saw he was stunned and just put him out. And you know, I can't remember the last time Guida's tough. He's old, but he's tough. But I can't remember the last time he was like finished, like, and certainly not not 15 seconds or whatever into the first round. I mean, it was like super quick. And then the other one was, these guys are, you know, not quite ready for prime time. These are more like lower level fights. But the guy Meerschaert was fighting this guy Giles, and you know, he could tell that he just had a great McKenzie, and he tried it once, failed, tried it again, boom, got it in, and it was just a done deal. It was, and the guy tapped. This is actually unfortunate. It happened a few times, and Herb Dean was having an off night, but there were a few fights where the guys are tapping, and Herb didn't stop it. So this one, the guy tapped out 9 times.
Oh, wow.
9 times, went unconscious. Herb goes over, shakes his hand, and then lets him go and calls the fight. And thank God he wasn't hurt or anything like that. But I think what happened was he's very affected by the Lawler Askren fight, because everybody like got on his case. Like, you stopped it too early, blah, 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 blah. And now he's like overshooting. You know, he's like kind of doubting himself, you know, and because there's like 3 fights that night that he was like, whoa, you should have stopped this. This was too late. And, and the same thing with the Miller fight. It was like a little bit of a late stoppage, and he was out. I mean, he was unconscious.
I haven't heard anybody talk about that.
Out. Really. Yeah. And, it was, you know, I think I feel bad for Herb Dean. And this is the thing about referees is like, they cannot win. They're a thankless job, completely thankless, because if they call the fight perfectly, everybody's like, well, that's what we expected you to do. If they make one mistake, then everybody's like, oh, the ref sucked and this and that. And it's just completely thankless. That's, I think, for every sport, you know? But Herb Dean is a great ref. And of course, human beings are not perfect, you know? But I think he got so much flack for that Askren, you know, Robbie Lawler stoppage, where everybody's like, you know, you stopped it too early. And I think he's like, kind of like, you know, let things go a little longer, and this time he let it go too long. Thank God nobody was hurt, you know? It's a good thing about chokes and stuff is that, you know, as long as they're not really, really long, you're not.
Yeah, and the other fighter is aware.
Like,
once you passed out, they re-release it.
But you know what the rule is in the UFC? Don't let it go until the ref, you know, lets you go. This happened with G's last fight, his first pro fight, my student G. So he put the student in an arm lock, an Americana arm lock, and then he heard it crack. So G let it go. And then the kid was like about to like say, I didn't tap. But then he's like, holy crap, my arm is messed up. Yeah. He was about to say he didn't tap. And then he's like, no. But the ref didn't stop it, which is actually, they could have made it go on. And that actually happened to me in one of my fights where the guy tapped me in the direction the ref couldn't see. And then I let it go. And then he said he didn't tap. I'm like, you motherfucker. I was so mad. Wow. And so it's like a thing. Like, you don't let it go until the ref pulls you off. But at the same time, it can be very dangerous because if somebody's tapping, I saw this one, you know, fight where the guy was out and the ref obviously just did not understand the submission. It was a necktie, and you could tell that he had never seen a Japanese necktie before, right? Japanese necktie. It's kind of like not obscure submission, but not as well known as like a rear naked choke. So he's like looking at this guy, and the guy is unconscious. I mean, done, unconscious. Then the ref's like, keep going, keep it going, keep it going. And it's going really long. And it was to the point of dangerous, like extremely dangerous. I was watching, like, oh my God. And then finally, what happens is the fighter who's holding it lets it go. Because like, no, I'm going to freaking kill this guy. So he's like, it's not worth it. He lets him go. And of course, the guy's unconscious and does not wake up for like a minute. It was really bad. So the thing is, you have to educate these refs to keep it safe. You know, this is not one man walks in and 2 men walk in and 1 man walks out. You know, that's not what we're trying to do here. So it was dangerous. I feel bad for Herb Dean, but thank God nobody was hurt. You know, it was long for Herb Dean, but in the long grand scheme of things, nobody was hurt. But it was still like, holy crap. And but it was 2 interesting things to see specialists, really specialists, working the craft. And like I always say, is like, are the specialists going to win or the generalists? And that's this battle that we kind of haven't figured out yet, you know. And you see a lot of generalists in MMA, but then when they come up against a specialist, a lot of times the specialist wins. And these guys, 2 guys were very, very strong guillotine specialists and just showed a masterclass in how to, do those moves. Two very different guillotines. One is a Marceltine, which is kind of comes around the trachea and it wraps around, and the guy puts his hands like this, like a prayer position, and he pushes. And the regular Armin guillotine is like this, you know, where the head is underneath the arm and the other arm is here. And it's kind of interesting.
Thanks for not demonstrating on me.
Oh, I
could get Raul in here if it.
Why do we call
bring
him?
him
Sure,
in?
let's do it. No.
Raul, get in here. We need to practice on you. Interesting. Which one's better? Situational?
Yeah, it's exactly. You just read my mind. It is no better. It's what's right for that situation. You know, it's also like martial arts. Which martial art is better than the other one? Who knows?
Japanese or Brazilian? Which one's better? I'm talking about the food, not the
other food.
Yeah.
I prefer Japanese food.
I've never had Brazilian food. Actually, I've been to Brazilian steakhouse.
Yeah,
That's
steakhouse.
it,
That's
yeah.
there's Brazilian food.
Yeah.
Do you ever had feijoada?
No.
It's like it's good.
It's good. Just order it. Shut up.
It's like the stew with beans and stuff. Yeah, it's good. It has like
don't have that before you come here.
Yeah, that would be. Yes, I will have that.
It smells better in the studio.
It's like the
this week
national
than
dish of Brazil. So,
that's cool.
Yeah, and they have them usually have them at steakhouses too, where it's like on the side you can get some feijoada. It has like sausage
on
and
the
stuff.
side.
Yeah, like it's like a thing.
You just eat meat. That's all you get.
Yeah. But the stew has meat in it too. And,
okay,
it's delicious.
Fine, I'll eat it.
I enjoyed Brazilian food, but it can be depending on it. And you know, like Brazil is such a big country. I'm sure that there's many regional differences between food. I am not a connoisseur of Brazilian food. I just lived there for a little bit, and what I ate was
we
mostly,
spent a lot more
delicious.
time in Japan, right?
Yeah. I was there in Japan for years. Yeah. And Japan has an interesting, like people think Japan is sushi, but sushi is like more like a celebratory food. It's not like what you eat every night. You know, you don't have sushi at your home with your wife. You know, like you'll have maybe some sashimi, which is just called raw fish, and then you'll have some other. But Japanese eat a lot of grilled fish, rice, a lot of pickled vegetables, and extremely healthy traditional diet. Japan's traditional diet is extremely healthy.
Did you ever eat a live octopus when you were there?
I ate a live shrimp.
No.
I ate a live shrimp, and I did not eat a live octopus. No, but I ate a live shrimp.
I saw a video.
Kind of dancing around in your mouth, and you eat it.
I saw a video of a guy eating a live octopus, and it's like.
Yeah, I saw that video too. Yeah.
It was trying to climb out
of his mouth. Yeah, I
like,
saw that. That's crazy.
Just knock it out at least. Like,
yeah, I know. It's Japanese have this element of their culture, which is like if you go to Japan, this is kind of interesting. This is a little off topic, but if you go to Japan, everybody's super nice to you. So you're like, how are these people like the most polite people in the world? You know? Then you're like, you think back historically. Oh, these are the people who did the Bhutan Death March, and these are the people who did the rape of Nanking. How is this possible? That this culture, that these people are so nice to you on one hand, are like so brutal on the other. And Japanese society does have a streak of sadism in it. It does. And that's usually directed to an out-group member. So that's why one reason why bullying is very, very strong and malicious in Japan. Yours is in-group, and you strengthen your in-group by bullying the people out-group. And the same thing for, when their armies invade other nations, sometimes they're extraordinarily brutal because their propaganda said these people are not our in-group, which is, I think, true for every culture, but it was extraordinarily true in Japanese culture. And they dehumanized a lot of people, and then that allowed them to, perform war crimes, or just whatever. And I think the same thing is true when they deal with certain types of animals, right? Like, there's this casual cruelty sometimes to animals that is like, whoa, that's really like, you should probably kill that before you make it suffer and eat it. And, it's this casual cruelty that they're not human, so whatever. But the funny thing is, on the other side, Japanese have a wonderful stewardship of some certain Japanese, not always, not the big companies who destroy the environment, but there's certain Japanese have in their culture that have a tremendous concept of stewardship of the environment and, being one with nature and blah, 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 blah. And yet you're like, I'll eat this live octopus even if it's suffering. And, octopi are octopuses. Actually, I think the correct one is octopus. It's not octopi, but they're actually quite intelligent.
Yeah.
You know, like making them suffer is not cool. Like I believe in killing animals to eat. I am not a vegetarian or pescatarian. As you like, you know, hey, we got to survive. But I also don't believe in undue cruelty, which is why I have a problem with our modern, you know, factory farming. Yeah, like very cruel. But I have no problem killing something to eat it. You know, as long as you do the Native American way, which is like you respect the animal sacrifice and you don't waste anything, and you just make sure that you give it a moment of say, hey, thank you for, you know, sacrificing yourself so that I can live. And it's, you know, unfortunately that's the world we live in until we like, you know, make microbiotic Soylent Green. Yeah. Soylent Green, it's made of people. No, but nobody's going to get that.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
When are they going to remake that movie?
Oh yeah, you know, that would be a good remake. You know, I made that joke. It's made of people. Nobody got it. Nobody got it. You know, there's like a product called Soylent now.
I know, and I was like freaking out. I'm like, are you serious? They don't have Soylent Green.
Half our young listeners have no idea what I'm talking about. It's a Charlton Heston movie from the 1960s, 70s, 60s, early.
It's
late.
a trippy movie.
Yeah.
Like they go into the suicide.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's a movie but ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't appreciated.
Yeah, you know that movie, and it was at the same time came up. I Am Legend original movie, which was called Omega Man. It was also a Charlton Heston movie. You know that Will Smith I Am Legend.
Yeah,
that's a remake of Omega Man. And it's but the remake is actually really good except for the end. But
they changed the ending.
I know,
sons of bitches.
Yeah, God damn it,
censoring us.
Yes,
it's blood.
Yeah,
stupid.
All right.
How did we get here?
Anyway, yes. So let's get back to the last fight
we
we're
didn't
talk
about Colby.
Yeah. So Colby Covington Lawler, and this is kind of interesting too, because like you said, why was Max Holloway so successful against, you know, Edgar, but not successful in Poirier? Obviously, you know, there's weight difference and things like that, but technically speaking, then you look at Robbie Lawler, and Robbie Lawler's had some fights where he's very, very successful, and then lately, you know, he's kind of, and watching this fight made me understand why he lost. Or, you know, even if you think it was a bad call, why he got to that position where, you know, Herb Dean had that call. But I think, you know, more I watch it, the more I'm like, you know, who knows? But you can understand why this happened. So this is kind of interesting. So, first of all, Colby Covington's volume and variability just outclassed, you know, Lawler. Now you said it was like 90 to 200 or something. What was the
201 to 82?
82, right? But the amount Colby threw that didn't connect because Lawler was bobbing and weaving and things like that. But he was basically like this. I counted one point where Lawler, it was something like 10 or 15 strikes before Lawler even hit one. And he was defending a good amount of them. But if one guy's throwing 15 strikes and you throw one, eventually you're going to lose because he's going to catch you. Just the output was crazy. Covington is a cardio and machine, and also technically he's decently skilled. So he's not like blowing all his cardio with like big power shots. And I mean, when absolutely it was nonstop offense, and Lawler just couldn't seem to get his offense off, and that's kind of like, why is that? Now, was it that Covington was so much better? No, because it actually looked to me like Covington's not really ready for the prime time. And of course, I don't like the guy, but it's like from a completely objective eye, you're like, yeah, it wasn't that great. You know, he's not really that great. I mean, he's way he's shooting, not really in love with. His hips are back, his head is down. The way he's kind of clinches into dirty boxing clinch. He was interesting use of it, but he was like a B-level fighter. He's not someone I would consider an A-level fighter. I just wouldn't. But he's young, he's strong, he's tremendous cardio, very efficient movement. So generally speaking, and he can just hit takedown after takedown after takedown and takedown attempt. Now, what happened with this is that Lawler is what I call a power escape fighter. Not a power puncher. I mean, obviously he could be a power puncher too, but power escape fighters are like, what's the my balls are hot guy? What's his name? What's his name?
Derek Lewis.
Derek Lewis. He's another one. Or Ngannou, right? Or they're guys that don't invest in the technique. They invest in their attributes to escape. So, and they can work. And especially if you're Ngannou, it can work until you fight Stipe Miocic, who is like technically much better at dealing with your power, and you can't get up. And then you just wind up getting more and more tired. So a power escape fighter has to do this. They get ready and wait for that opening, and they just escape, and like they're just kind of waiting for your mistake a little bit lull in the pressure, and then they escape. And man, Lawler gave up his back like 40 freaking times. He did all the things you're not supposed to do. Then he would just explode out. Now, these can work, but you can't do it 40 times. It makes you really freaking tired. And also, guess what? Lawler's not a spring chicken anymore. He can't fight like he fought way back when he was at Militich Fighting Systems in 1999 or 2000. Like you're not that kid anymore. So every time you do that, you got to pay the piper. Your cardio is going to just drop. And like he just, that's the bad end of putting your all eggs in being an athlete rather than being a technical escape artist. And, for my fighters in my academy, and I was telling this to my students on Saturday, I'm like, the first way to become a really experienced fighter, the best way to become is be Harry Houdini. Be able to get out of any position. And it was funny that my wife didn't know who Harry Houdini was. And I'm like, she's like, who's Harry Houdini? I'm like, how do you not know who Harry Houdini is? But anyway, that's another story. But I'm like, you have to be Harry Houdini. You have to be an escape artist. You have to be an escape artist. If you can escape what people throw at you, technically, then you can take chances or you can experiment in this and not fear what's going to come up. So if I were telling anybody, whether it's a striker, whether it's a grappler, whatever, if you want to get good, first put your emphasis on movement and angles and escape in striking, not getting hit and being able to deflect stuff. And in grappling, getting out of all submissions and pins and things like that. Just be Harry Houdini. Wherever they put you, you know how to get out. And get out technically with the minimum use of force. And like you could just see it over time. Lawler was like, he just couldn't rev up. And he was just constantly just getting hit. And the guy, if somebody's throwing 15 strikes at your face and you throw one, there's something wrong with what you're doing. There's something freaking wrong.
Yeah.
So, and I was counting, I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
541 strikes.
541. And how much did the other guy throw? Probably
171.
Yeah, 5 times as much. Yeah, look at that. When it's 5 to, and it's funny because I put here, Lawler's strike count is probably around 500. Yeah, 541. Not Lawler, Covington. Yeah. I missed it by 41, but I'm like, yeah, he's 5. Like the strike count is just, it was 5 times as much. And then I think also in the beginning rounds, it wasn't like that. It was more even, right? And it was towards the end. So like what you're talking about is the beginning was probably like 1-1 or 2-2. 2-1, something like that. And then here, towards the end, it was like 10-1, 15-1, right? Because in the beginning, Lawler wasn't tired.
Yeah.
And, but to the end, he was just like, but I have to give him credit. He had some good, bobbing and weaving in defense. But then eventually, if you're not throwing, you're going to lose. You're not trying to fight back, you're going to lose. So that's how I saw that.
Wow. What's coming up?
Well, I think we have to do a raffle.
Oh, yeah, we got to do a raffle. Somebody wants a book. You mooches, buy your own book.
Buy your own book. No. I want to thank everybody who took the time to write, some really, really great reviews on our podcast. And I'm, really thankful to our listeners. I sit with you every week and of course I have so much fun, talking to my wonderful co-host, but at the same time, it's nice to hear that some people listen and really appreciate it. And, we got Barry's book, we got a copy. So I hope you can enjoy it.
My favorite review, I don't know who wrote it, but it was, Renee always has some interesting things to say about martial arts and I always learn something. And Matt's funny sometimes. It's like, I appreciate that. Every now and then I talk.
Actually, Matt, you make me crack up. And you know what? It's like funny because, sometimes you listen to other podcasts, you like see what other people are doing. And like, there's some guys who are as knowledgeable as I am and many who are more, right? Who are very, very knowledgeable. But their co-host is really freaking boring. And there's only, you need someone like you. You need someone to make things laugh and like break the tension and it's fun. And so I appreciate you, Matt.
Well, I think we work well together, sir.
We're amazing.
And the reviews are in. Everybody likes it.
Everybody okay, so go pick one. Pick one. Ready? You got to close your eyes. Close your eyes. Because we have a couple of people we know who are in this. People we know who wrote the reviews. So Matt has to close his eyes to make sure that he doesn't pick someone he knows. And we wrote it down. And
one of these is my mom, so and she won't read this.
Is
book.
your mom?
She's
no,
scared.
it's not your.
One of them probably is.
No, I don't think so.
Mom, if you haven't reviewed me yet, Hey,
Okay.
I don't
Okay,
see.
close your eyes. Close your eyes. Ready? Mush around and pick one.
Is this everything?
Yeah, that's everything. Okay, ready?
Here we go. I can't even read that. Is your handwriting? What are you, a doctor?
Accident prone 818.
Accident prone 818.
So accident prone 818, you are the winner of our raffle, and you'll get a copy of the Killer Collective. And just contact us through the
Do you know who that is?
And Marshall, I have no idea. That's the one I didn't know.
Surprise.
Surprise! Yeah. Too bad, Scarlett May
Sorry,
and
Scarlett.
Sharon. I was looking at all the people.
There'll
my
be more to
students.
give away.
Yes, we have other giveaways too.
We have another book we want to give away eventually, right?
Which one's that?
Ian? No. The
Andreas's book.
Yeah.
Oh, no, but that's like a Kindle book, isn't it? Or no?
Is
I
it
don't
only
know.
digital?
Oh, it is only digital. I
I
don't
think
know.
we give away one of those.
Yeah, I have his book in my house. So I don't know.
Oh,
I
look
could
at
give away my
fancy,
copy,
man.
but I want it.
Give people your Kindle. Load it with books and give it away. I don't know. We'll have
No,
more
okay.
people.
So Accident Prone 818, please contact us through the Marshall Culture Facebook page or Marshall Culture Instagram with your mailing address, and we will mail you the book. Thank you, Accident Prone, and thank you for the wonderful review. I actually just read it about 5 minutes ago.
What was the
really
review?
nice.
Was it
It
good?
was, yeah, it was nice. It was nice.
I'm curious.
It was. We could read it later. We could
Read it later. All right. People don't want to hear
now,
us read
I want to
it.
talk about one last thing before we go. All right, one last thing.
Go.
All right. So I had this interesting experience. And we're always talking about like how teachers have to teach this and this. Now I want to talk about the mistake of, and a lot of times I put the teacher's mistake. The teacher should do this. And, this is the way they should teach jiu-jitsu. This is the way they should teach MMA. And this is, but, sometimes the mistake is the fault of the student and sometimes encouraged by the teacher too. So I'm going to tell you this example. We're getting on the subway to go train, and it was early in the morning, and there was people on the train getting ready to go to train as well. And we happened to see they're all wearing jiu-jitsu shirts and things like that, and their instructor is a very famous guy. Very famous guy, and I'm not going to say any names.
We're not saying it on
No,
purpose?
we're not saying
Okay.
names. Not saying names, and it's a very famous school, and this happens a lot though. And this is not just jiu-jitsu. This is so many martial arts where, so there's this one old guy and he's talking, and he met another person. They're all going to the same class. And the other person had some kids, and they were taking the younger kids to the class too. And the kids everybody's wearing like the logo shirts and the logo shorts and the logo bag. And, they're just decked out with the swag. And, they're like, oh yeah, all they would talk about was like, yeah, I train with this guy. And, aren't we lucky to train with this guy and this guy? And, it's always good to be proud that you train under a certain instructor. That's a good thing. But remember, it doesn't matter how good your instructor is. It's how good you are. It's the work that you put in.
Mm-hmm.
Don't live like a vampire off the achievements of your instructor. So these guys are talking like, yeah, and the thing they said was that their instructor had just met with the president of Brazil, because, there's a new president of Brazil, whatever, regardless of what you think about him. But I think it was the president, I'm not really sure. But they're talking like, yeah, he's just met with the president. Isn't that amazing? This and that. I'm like, I'm sitting there like, I shouldn't really listen. I should just mind my own business. And I'm not causing judgments. It's something that's very strong, common in the martial art community, in every martial art, so I don't want to just say on this academy, right? And I've actually had it in my academy where I actually sat the student down and talked to him and said, you can't think like that. So I'm going to say what happens. Like, basically, you put your instructor on this like guru pedestal, and then you live vicariously and vampirically through their achievements rather than creating your own. Mm-hmm. And then this is what happens. So they get off the subway, right? And they're a little bit late to class. And the one guy who's like, yeah, our instructor's so amazing. I'm like, he's so great. I realize that he's quite overweight. And, which is not a bad thing. I'm not shaming him or anything like that. But he was like really talking like, yeah, man, I'm so glad to be a fighter in this camp and this and that. And the other students are like, man, I'm going to be late. Let's hurry. And the guy's like, you got to go ahead. I can't even run up the stairs. I'm like, motherfucker, you're pretending you're being a martial artist when you can't really fucking up and run up the stairs.
Wow.
Like man, before you can brag about how like awesome and what he was saying was really like, he's like, yeah, man, I'm so cool because I train here. No, that is not the way. That is not the way. And I've seen this so many times where it's like you feel empowered because your instructor is so awesome. No, it is not about what your instructor did. It's about what you are going to do day in, day out in your process. And it really like, and I was like, this guy's like, can't even make it up 5, there's 10 stairs in the stuff. Wait, he's like, the 5th stair, he's like huffing and puffing. And he's like,
day one is his first day.
No, it's not. And I mean, he's like,
a blue belt, right?
He's definitely not a white belt. That's not how he was talking. He was talking like he was like a more, the way he was talking, I don't know what his rank was, but he was talking like he was a bit of a more senior student because he was like talking to the other student. He was kind of like talking down to the woman with the kids. He's like, yeah, well, if you ever need some, pointers on technique, I'm tight with the master, And I'm like, dude, you can't even walk up 5 fucking stairs. And that's okay if you had a more humble attitude and you're like, hey, I'm going to put this work in and I'm going to be the best person I can be. And I'm not trying to like shame people. You should start even if you're in the worst shape and people should help you. But what I'm problem with is this guru attitude. Like you're sucking off the achievements of your instructor. And like, instead of doing the work that you have to do, you like latch on to the like it's like in high school there was the jock and then he has the little hanger-ons who are like, oh, Chip, you're so awesome, like, dude, that is not the way. That is definitely not the way of martial arts. And sorry,
we're out of time. Sorry.
and this is true. So, and I saw this in karate all the time. So I'm talking about jiu-jitsu now, but this is what happens in karate. Like a lot of like white guys. Like, when it doesn't have to be white, it could be any race, but not Asian, not Japanese, would have a Japanese instructor. And they just so want to be their instructor. And if anybody tells them, they're like, where do you train? Like, yeah, I trained under Master Miyazaki was my instructor, right? But, because my instructor is kind of famous. So I was like, yeah, I trained under Master Miyazaki. And my instructor, Sensei Miyazaki, could not stand being called Master Miyazaki. He hated that. He's like, you call me Mister or you can call me Sensei. And he would not like push the term Sensei. And he would like, don't, Master's not, or no, Grandmaster, whatever. And he's like, I don't really do that, but they were like, yeah, I trained under him. And who'd do that? All the people who absolutely sucked. And they have these amazing, huge, they get the regular diploma for their black belt, but then they would like expand it bigger and then like put it on the wall so nobody could miss it, and they're so fucking bad, and then these people come in and, this is my dojo all the time. And I'm like, did you study martial arts? And they go, of course I studied. I studied under, Grandmaster, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, that tells me nothing about you. That tells me then when somebody comes in and says, yeah, I wrestled in high school, but I've got a lot to learn. I'm like, yes. That's the guy, not like, yeah, my master was, Stone Cold Killer. It tells me nothing about you.
Just trying to build a resume.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, like, it's the name brand society. It's like someone saying, I went to Yale, but I flunked out. You're like, well, what does that mean?
Clout chasing.
Yeah, but it is part of our society, and it's really, really big here in America. But it's not the way, and it turns my stomach that people, you need to be much more existential in their approach. And existentialism is the branch of philosophy, and it says that you are really the sum of a simple way of saying you're really the sum of your achievements and your experiences. And that's really what martial arts is the idea that you have to chase this experiential, this life, this growth pattern, and it's going to make you into a better, more person. And it doesn't matter if your instructor is a great champion or not. And actually, let me tell you, a lot of guys, look at Jackson Wink as a good example. Greg Jackson is not a champion by any means. He actually has a terrible MMA record. He was not a champion. He was not a good fighter, but he's a great coach. And the same thing with Crazy Bob Cook at AKA. He's the grappling guy. He's no major resume, but he has developed a stable of guys in AKA who are very, very, very strong. Just because your instructor is a nobody doesn't mean anything. Besides, it's what you can do in that path. And the same thing is true as tennis. Like the best tennis coaches were like the B-level circuit guys. They weren't like the high-level guys, And but it's like, is there something empty in you if you're always deferring to your credentials in terms of your instructor? Not like, hey, I did this and I did this. My instructor did this. Well, your instructor's not you. It doesn't matter. Your lineage is important in the sense that that shows that you have a link to the past. And I'll be honest, I'm very proud of my different lineages, that I'm proud, but that doesn't make me it doesn't make me have to work any less hard each day. Okay, yes, I trained under, Higa Machado at one point. I did train under Marcelo Garcia at one point. It doesn't mean anything. Marcelo Garcia is awesome, but if I half-assed it, that wouldn't mean anything.
Yeah.
I trained under Jenny Rebelo in Brazil for a little bit. He's a great grandmaster. Doesn't mean anything if I didn't get anything out of it. Mm-hmm. That lineage is nothing compared to your own hard work. However, as an instructor, if somebody said, who did you train under? You do have to kind of say, it's sort of like, yeah, did you go to college? Yes, I went to NYU for my graduate, and I went to Columbia for my undergraduate. And then, what'd you study? Well, I studied East Asian. Well, okay, who was your instructor? Well, I was under this guy, and and I studied under Gerald Curtis for a little bit, and people understand that you're legitimate. Mm-hmm. Good. But then at the end of the day, they shouldn't judge you just that. They should judge you on watch your actual technique and your teaching and things like that.
And on my resume, I put I attended college. If you assume I graduated, that's on you. I attended.
Exactly. No, but that's exactly my point. You don't know what you did in college.
Yeah.
You could have cheated your way through.
Just smoked pot all day and just hung out.
Did you smoke pot all day and hang out?
I don't know.
He doesn't want to
remember.
He can't remember. Because you smoked pot all day. It's all haze. Exactly.
So your resume should start with you. And then list the people.
And okay, let me tell you about these karate guys, right? So then it gets really weird. It gets really almost weirdly racist, because I know so many guys brought up in, Queens who start teaching karate in a Japanese accent. Which I will not do on the radio, but I've seen it so many times. And the same thing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You have to do the armbar like this. I'm like, dude, you grew up in Jersey. Why are you talking like that? This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And it's every martial art. It's every martial art. But it's this weird thing that, and okay, this is actually not martial arts, but I got to tell you about this, right? So there's this sushi guy who got really, really, really in trouble because he was doing a Japanese accent. And the thing is, I went to because my friend is a sushi chef, and she had this little sushi stall, and it was next to his, and it's like a high-end sushi stall. Like you said, it's like a 4-person all-you-can-eat thing, and we wanted to support her, and so he went. But next to her is this guy, this Bozo, right? Mm-hmm. And he lived in Japan for so long, and he's talking to me oh, you speak Japanese? I don't even want to do it because it's so fucking racist. But, he's doing this fucking Japanese accent. I'm like, dude, you're a fucking white guy from Queens. Stop with the fucking accent. And he's I've seen it in martial arts. I recognized it immediately what he was doing. Mm. It was just wanting to be your master so much because there's something empty inside of you that you put on it's like cosplaying. You cosplay your master. Mm-hmm. But that is, especially when it comes to certain accents, it's racist.
Don't do it,
yeah, don't do it. Don't do it. It's this is bad.
It's like you're trying to immediately legitimize yourself and make your I can speak kind of Japanese, so I must be able to make good sushi. That's
right.
Who's racist in that instance? Am I racist because I think that if you speak Japanese, you're better at sushi?
Well, no, it means you probably live there. That's a good reason. But he doesn't really. I mean, it's not he doesn't speak Japanese. You speak it to me in English in a weird Japanese accent. Yeah. And he was actually there's this attitude that Japanese old men have towards foreigners, which is a little bit ignorant and not wonderful. And he was mimicking that I'm like, dude, you're younger than me and you're white. Why are you doing that Japanese old guy thing? And I'm sitting there offended. And I'm I'm not even Asian. I'm offended. If I were Asian, I'd be really offended. My wife is sitting there. She's like, this guy's kind of stupid, but I don't really care. Because my wife is so cool. But.
That's when you start talking in Japanese,
yeah, I talked to him Japanese,
and then he's huh?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what he did. So I started talking Japanese, right? And my Japanese is a little rusty now, but I still fluent, but but the high level words, I'm not as strong as I used to be. But what I did was I did use all really high level vocabulary. And I'm he's oh, thank you. And he goes, you didn't understand a word I fucking said, motherfucker. Yeah. I'm you take that. I really speak Japanese.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, but
got it.
Yeah, so it's it's the guy, and then the funny thing he got written up by the New York Magazine because people complained this is fucking racist. It's an article and all but it's this idea that you have to put on some sort of performative front because you can't stand alone on your own achievements. And that is something that as martial artists we cannot do. Do not live vicariously through your master. Or, and like I said, this happened to me because when I was fighting, man, I had a lot of people like, Renee, this is so cool. Then the minute I stopped fighting, they don't want to hear from you anymore. And then the thing is also as an instructor, they're like, oh, Renee, and I hear people talking like, I train under Renee Dreyfus. I'm like, dude, stop that. I'm not the guy. You're the guy. You're the guy. You're the guy that day in, day out has to put the hard work. I did my work and I did what I could do. And I wish I sometimes could have done more, but I did what I could have done. And I'm proud of some of my achievements. And, I still have some places to go to make myself a better martial artist. But that's my path. That's not your path. Mm-hmm. And stop being, sucking the what's the word I'm looking for? The fame of your instructor and making it your own, but we like that. We love like, yeah, I'm a Jets fan and Jets won. Man, dude, you're not on the field. Like, what the fuck? I don't get that fandom, that crazy fandom. But you know what? The other thing is some instructors really, really emphasize, they allow that and they like it because it's good for business. So the students are all lazy. Oh yeah. And they're all lazy and work hard, but they can say, yeah, I trained it, blah, 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 blah. And
just to get their logo on your jacket.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And it's disgusting. And this is not one martial art. It's every martial art in America. And even a little bit in Japan, not as bad, but it was, I never experienced judo. Judo was never like that. But like the more esoteric martial arts, they'd insert, yes, I'm a student of blah. And there's a way to say that because in Japanese you kind of do have to say who you in master is in a way, like it's kind of Japanese in the way that you kind of have to say like, yes, I'm under Miyazaki and that's kind of how you introduce yourself. But there's a way to do it like humble, and then there's a way to do it arrogant. Mm-hmm. And I was like a victim of this like arrogant. And you know what? Then you spar with these guys. You just say, let's spar. And like, no, I don't want to spar. Or they spar and they beat the snot out of them because they suck shit. And it's always those guys who suck. So like, you have to be your own man or own woman. You have to live on your achievements, not someone else's. And it drives me up the wall when people do that. And especially when I'm the person they're like latching onto. I'm like, no. I'm like, let's not do that. Now you should be very proud of the academy if you have a wonderful time in the academy and you have a lot of friends, but you should be focused on your hard work and your path and being the best you that you can be. And also when the time comes, when that, there's this great quote. Okay, I'm going to read this quote to you. This is the quote that motivates me every day. This is it. Okay, listen to this. This is the way. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have got to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of? If I'm going to do what I was born for, the things I was brought into the world to do, or is this what I was created for? To huddle under the blankets and stay warm? Man, that gets me out of bed every day. Like, you have stuff to achieve. Stop staying in the blanket being lazy. Yeah. It's time to go to work and fulfill the destiny that you were born for.
Go to work.
Yeah.
Get up.
Get on up. James Brown.
I'm not going to sing that. But get up.
I thought we were going to do a duet here. James Brown duet. No?
I'm sorry.
Okay. That's okay.
Maybe next time.
I was kind of feeding off of your musical talent. Anyway, that's my point of the day.
Get up and rewind that and write it down and put it above your bed, that quote.
Yes.
Is there attributed to anybody?
That's Marcus Aurelius.
Marcus Aurelius.
The father of one of the worst emperors in Roman history.
Well, he got up and he made that baby.
He made that baby. It is Marcus. Yeah, it's Marcus Aurelius. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. He's actually a famous Stoic philosopher who was also the Roman emperor. But, his son was Commodus, who was, made famous in the movie Gladiator.
Sure.
Yes.
Can you read that back in Greek?
In Roman.
In Roman, yeah.
Which would be Latin.
But I want you to do it in Greek, though.
In Greek?
Yeah.
It's all Greek to me.
And that's all the time we have for today. Don't forget to get up, and we got time before the next fights. We can come back Monday and talk about what's coming up.
Well, we got Stipe Miocic versus Cormier. We got Khabib versus Poirier. We got so much coming up that's awesome.
August is going to be huge in the future.
Actually, I think the one is it's like a little bit further. It's like October or something. But
I can't wait that long.
Yeah.
Let's make them fight now.
Yeah, anyway.
Let's go.
But we have some good stuff coming up too. There's some really good stuff. Anyway, so Let's hope Dana White re-signs Cyborg, but we'll see what happens there.
Meh.
Yeah.
Move on.
Move on.
I'm
Moving
done
on.
with her.
Okay.
Get rid of her.
Get rid of
Throw
her.
her out the window.
The next one is Shevchenko versus Carmouche. That's interesting. And then August 17th is Cormier Miocic. Who do you have, Cormier or Miocic?
That's a tough one. My gut goes with the
Cormier?
Miocic.
Miocic. You know what? I had Miocic for the first one,
I did too.
and I think he'll take this one. I don't think Cormier is going to do it. But then again, Cormier proved me wrong the first one. So I really thought Stipe was going to take it. So we'll do a double bet against ourselves. So if Cormier wins, we both lose.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
If Stipe wins, we both win.
All right. Accident Prone 818. Don't forget to let us know. Get in touch with us some way or another.
Yes.
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
I don't check the Twitter. Facebook is best, or Instagram. Or you can email me at coachdreyfus, DREIFUSS, at gmail.com.
There you go.
All
Please
right.
Get in touch. We'll give you your book, The Killer Collective.
Yes.
And we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.